Well, that's good. Kind of summed up the talk. So we can all go home now. Something about music, isn't there? The way that the lyrics and the sounds just get into our bodies and our minds in a way that nothing else quite does. So I'm appreciative every week of our band, and certainly at this another wonderful year of fabulous music here at the center. So I'm feeling very thankful about that. And today I'm here to talk to you about fresh snow, new beginnings. Fresh snow, perfect, right? On Boxing Day, my partner and I drove my brother to the airport, and after we dropped them off, we went to a restaurant for breakfast. We drove into the parking lot, and it was covered in just a light covering of fresh, unmarked snow. Very few vehicles in there yet. And it made me think of this talk, obviously, and when I got out of the car, I did one of those. Remember when you were a kid, did you do this? You know, the tractor, you put your feet sideways like this, you can make a tractor track. You also have to go back then and do the second one so it doesn't look like you had a unicycle tractor. But I still found that fun to do, and there's just something about that fresh expanse of snow. And really a New Year's like that, isn't it? It is territory as yet unmarked. 2015 is a brand new opportunity to express more of who we are, to have a kinder, gentler, more joyful experience, or if we're ready to rock and roll, to have a more expansive, dynamic experience. So really, it's a time for new beginnings. And I love that idea. So today we're going to explore that idea a little bit this morning. What about this new beginning? How do we move forward into this in maybe a newer way than we have before? I've had cause for reflection lately. It's this time of the year, but also recently a cousin of mine who was only 64 years old made her transition. In our teaching, we think of death as a transition on to something else. But it's certainly a time that seems so final. And I also attended a retirement event for a person who's retired from a 40-year career. So big transition, you know, a real time for her to look back and see what she's accomplished and look ahead to what she will create next in her life. It's nearing the end of the year. The end of the year always has that reflective kind of feel to it for me. And I recently attended a winter solstice celebration. And the darkness of winter itself, the short days, seemed to encourage reflection. Recently in Zoomer magazine, any of you old enough to be reading Zoomer magazine? It's the magazine for those of us who are like a little older than 30. And an author wrote in that magazine in December. Her name is Audie, or man, I'm not sure if it's a man or woman. Audie Goslin wrote. She expressed this idea of reflection and of this winter time perfectly. Winter is a good time to practice cultivating the light from within. Beyond the layers of skin, muscles, flesh, bones, cells, there is a flame known as the soul waiting to be ignited. When the flame inside is ignited, we want to live our best life and illuminate the world. Instead of letting the winter get to you and make you feel tired, weaker, think of it as a time to step back, relax your body, and open your heart to more awareness. I define awareness in this way. It is your perception and reaction to all things happening in your life. So how do we open the heart to more awareness in our lives? So I asked myself this year, do I want to open my heart to more awareness in my life? Or will I get a bit stuck in what I usually do at the end of each year? And I don't know about you, but I think many of us typically at the end of each year, we take stock and we make resolutions. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with making a goal or making a resolution. The trouble with New Year's resolutions is that in my experience, quite often, our New Year's resolutions are actually self-critical. They may even be sort of shaming admonitions to clean up our act. So what are some of the New Year's resolutions we make? Lose weight, Be more loving, be kinder, budget better, work harder, be a better partner, spouse, parent. Enough already. And then, so we make all these resolutions, how we're gonna be better, right? We're not gonna do things the way we did last year. And then what happens to the resolutions? Have you ever noticed the gyms, fitness places and gyms? They're crazy in January. You can hardly get in the door. February, not so much. March, a little less. So most of the time we don't keep these resolutions anyway. So we do this little, you're gonna do more, be more, and then we kind of let it fall off the way. Because it's not really maybe coming from our hearts. Or it's not a vision pulling us forward, it's something saying, don't do this. My mom, some of you, I've talked about my mom before, many of you know that I have a mom, and she's 95 years old, she's quite remarkable. I asked my 95-year-old mom, I thought I'll get some words of wisdom from my mom about New Year's resolutions. So I asked her if she had made New Year's resolutions over the years. And she said, oh yes, I think I made them, but I don't think I ever kept them. I thought, yeah. So at 95, are we all going to be sitting around, are we going to be thinking, I remember that New Year's resolution I made in 2013. I vowed that I would stop watching the Kardashians on TV, and it transformed my life. So we're unlikely to remember those. So I'm going to suggest today, at least for this talk, throw out the New Year's resolutions because they're limited and they're limiting. They start at the lowest point. They start on the issues we're having and they try to fix something rather than starting from who we really are as limitless, powerful, spiritual beings of love and light. So what is really true about us is that we are good people right now. With all our faults and idiosyncrasies and habits that may not be serving us well, we are good and smart and beautiful and caring. You got that? We're good and smart and beautiful and caring. We don't need fixing. Maybe what we could use, though, is inspiration, new ideas, new vision. Maybe we need to allow ourselves to be drawn to what is already inside of us and to express more of it. We are made of spirit itself. We shall discover when we listen well is that we are and we have everything we need right now. Any of us who meditate regularly, we get in touch with that on a regular basis, that we are all of this expansive energy now. Stephanie Joanne Angelina Germanata, an American songwriter, singer, actress, philanthropist, dancer, and fashion designer, also known as Lady Gaga, very good. She wrote and she sings this. Rejoice and love yourself today, because, baby, you were born this way. So we're starting from that premise. Oh, thank you. We're starting from that premise today. So I want to forget about New Year's resolutions. I want to embrace a kinder, more joyful way of ending this year and beginning 2015 on a note of self-respect, self-love, self-confidence, and spiritual inspiration. How about it? Are you in? Yeah. All right, let's do it. So I really want to encourage us all to envision what will allow us to experience more of our natural spiritual inheritance of happiness, love and friendship, joy, contentment, vitality, health, etc., etc., etc. So, now, having said that, we're gonna do mostly visioning today. I also want to mention that I usually do, and I know some of you also do this, I do begin the process of looking forward by briefly looking back. So, I take stock. I find it useful to reflect on what I want to release. The good, the bad, what I call the good, what I call the bad, which the bad sometimes turns out to have been a real gift in my life. But I label it sometimes. I try not to label it, but I try to just look back, reflect a little bit. What I remember from the year. Not to try and correct it, not to go back and get stuck in it, but as a way to create space for new ideas. So I often write it down. So we've done a burning bowl here at the center before. So sometimes I'll write it down. I try not to have a big piece of paper. So, don't start with a poster. Start with a smaller piece of paper. Write it all down. I write over top of itself. I don't try to make it a work of art. I just write it down. It's really a release. So I write it down, and then I do burn it. I used to have a fireplace, and I burned it in the fireplace. But now what I do, I don't have a fireplace. Sometimes I get ambitious and I burn it. Try not to, set off your smoke alarms. But often I just tear it up into little pieces. But then I actually get rid of it. I get it out of my apartment. So I tear it up into little pieces, I put it in a bag or do something with it, and I take it out to the garbage chute, and it's gone. So it's the symbolic act, or the physical act of the symbol of really letting it go. So I do find that useful. So if you do some kind of process like that, I think that can be very helpful. Not required, of course. Maybe you have a different way to do this, but that can be helpful. The past only has the amount of energy we give it. Yes? So if it's still kind of, if you're going to drag it like heavy baggage into 2015, you might want to just, snip the ties on the pack sack you're dragging along. And the way of doing that can be just to write it down and get rid of it. So, and then I move on to thinking about what I might like to change. So, reflecting on what I want to let go of leads me into thinking, what would I want to do differently? And that's useful too. But I want you just to encourage not to get stuck in blaming or in thinking you've been doing things wrong so far. When people come to me for spiritual mind treatment, I say to them, if you could have done something about that differently with the level of thinking you had and the resources you had at that time, would you have? And they always say yes. I say, well then, it's not fair to ourselves to judge from this place of where I'm at now to judge what I did previously. We've been doing our best. We've been doing our best. So try and let it go with some gentleness and not with blaming. So the usefulness of reviewing the past year, though, is we can notice when we were off track or lost clarity. We can notice when we felt like we walked alone, or had no outlet for our gifts, or lost our voice. So to release the emotion of that, and then to remember that our purpose is to think about and move ahead in creating new tracks in that fresh snowfall. So now, to boldly go, as the title of my talk suggests. Do you all know the reference for the title, To Boldly Go? Yes. Borrowed from Star Trek, To Boldly Go Where No One Has Gone Before. That series was all about sailing into uncharted territory, wasn't it? Not just physical space, but not just the frontier space, but in human relationships and interspecies communication and connection. Kind of a bold vision for its time. So a friend of mine who is actually in the audience today, and I have her permission to mention her name this morning, Judy is here this morning, and a friend of mine, she's beginning this year with a very bold new vision for herself. She is going to Bhutan. She's going to travel by plane, by train, by bus, on foot, to a remote, or you're getting the idea, remote area in the mountains. If she wants to use the internet or be connected in that way with the world once a week, she'll need to walk 5 hours out to a village. So my question was, why? She said, many years ago she heard this from Dr. Carroll. She said, if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space. Mm-hmm. I wasn't quite satisfied with that. So I was still kind of curious. What's this about? And she said she's been working on this for a while. That this is just an idea that she's had and that she's listening to this call. And I didn't need to hear much more about it. My interpretation is that this is just like an idea that has not let go of her. This is a frontier for her. This is an adventure that she is being called to do in some profound way. And she's responding to this, what I believe is a divine urge in her, to be in that place and to be offering her gifts to the people that she will encounter there. So rather than New Year's resolutions this year to be better, kinder, richer, let's try allowing ourselves to be pulled forward by a vision, like Judy is, by some vision for ourselves that will take us to that next place, that greater expanded version of ourselves. And I have 3 suggestions about forming this vision. It does not need to be bold and dramatic in the worldly sense, the way that Judy's is, but it does need to be true and heartfelt and bold for you. An example would be a friend and I are taking an art course. I'm going to kind of support this person in doing this. It's called Drawing for the Completely Intimidated. And my friend is really intimidated. I'm a little bit intimidated, but my friend is like, she said to me, well, I might get there, and the first night I may run, screaming from the room halfway through the course, and you'll be stuck there by yourself. And I said, I'm willing to take that risk. But this is not climbing into the mountains, but this is nonetheless a very significant and bold move for her. Another friend of mine has been very unhappy with her work, angry to the point that it's been very difficult to have conversations with her. She's seen a new possibility for this new year. She's decided to create a home for herself, whatever that will look like, and to support her work team in what they need to do their jobs well. This is a huge, bold move from her being stuck in her dissatisfaction with her own situation. So, bold and heartfelt for you. The second thing I'd like to mention about this vision is, your vision may have a component of giving to self and giving to others. Not out of sacrifice or being better. Not because I need to be better to the people around me, or I need to give more because I'm supposed to, because I should, because I'll somehow be more saved if I do that. Not out of that, but because it's our nature to do so. We come into this world made of love. And we have kindness and empathy built in. And I believe when we squash that, when we don't offer our gifts, when we don't give to others, there's something really essential in us that wants out. Love wants to pull us forward. So very often our vision will have a component, and I think this will happen naturally, a component of giving to self and giving to others. And the third thing I'd like to mention about this vision is, if you pause and listen, through meditation, through visualization, through journal writing, in conversation. I learn a lot when I learn when I teach my classes, I learn when I talk. I'll be rehearsing this talk, for a week, and I'll learn things. So in conversation, idea or vision will come to you. That sometimes we struggle a bit too hard for it. I think we want to make those goals, SMART goals with time frames, and I encourage you to let go of that momentarily. You can pick it up later if you want. You can take this vision and then create some specific goals from it. But for the moment, try to let the vision come to you. And then you can let the actions unfold as you go along this year. And I'm proposing that you allow a few words to inspire and lead you, rather than something big and long that you're probably not going to remember. The list of 12 resolutions, not nearly as useful, I don't think, as a few words. So I am looking this year for more joy in my life. And I know that in focusing on that, it will happen. An example of this is also your center leaders. You know that many of you know that we got together for a visioning session. A bunch of the leaders in the center, the board, Dr. Pat and me, and some of the most senior volunteers. We got together and we did vision work with Dr. Kathy Hearn. And in that vision work, and Dr. Pat's going to talk about this more in January and be a little more specific about what we're doing, but we came up with some words for us to center on and to be more of, to let permeate into the center. And the words were wholeness, love, and joy. So if we start from that idea that our center is about wholeness, love, and joy, do you think we're ready to create a center that is inclusive, that is all that we want it to be? Sure. So we'll develop specific goals from that, but we start from that center place of wholeness, love, and joy. And many spiritual leaders and teachers have said that we already know who we are and what is right and perfect for us, and all we need to do is listen for those answers. The great Sufi poet Rumi said, "Let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love, it will not lead you astray. I love that, the strange pull of what you really love. You know, how often do we do that? How often do we instead deny what we truly love, thinking this is what I should be doing? So, I'm going to lead us now in just a brief visualization. I have a few questions that I'll ask. Take probably about 5 minutes, so make yourself comfortable. And just let your mind relax and see where this takes you. In a moment, I'll invite you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable to do that, as I read several questions. And the intention of this activity is to plant seeds of thought. So you may have a word or an image come to mind, or you may not. You may not get that right away today, but the seeds are planted. So allow it to just be there. Maybe something will come to you later today or this week. So no pressure to have to visualize something today, but just be relaxed with this and see what may come up. And recognize that there are no wrong answers to any of these questions. There are only your answers, the ones that are right and perfect for you. And I'm going to speak in the first person so that you can apply the questions personally. So close your eyes if you like. If you prefer, keep them open. And begin by taking a nice deep breath. Not forcing your breath, just allowing a nice full breath into the abdomen and releasing it in your own rhythm. Breathing in and breathing out. I know that as a spiritual human being, I am a co-creator with life itself. All that I desire to lead a rich, full, loving life is mine now. What will I choose to know about spirit and about myself as I boldly move forward into this brand new year? What is it I want more of? Freedom, peace of mind, energy, love. What is it I want more of? What is pulling me forward in love? Being with grandchildren, enrolling in university, redecorating my home, singing in a choir. What is pulling me forward in love? What am I attracted to